Yeah, welcome to YouTube. Welcome to the party, pal.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I get to sit down with my friend Nick Young, Velox Training Group. You travel around the country teaching classes, just like I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just intro you for you. So yeah,
I appreciate
it. Yeah, exactly. Nick's a Walther guy, a Mod Light guy, howitzer. You're around.
I'm around.
Anyway,
make the rounds.
Yeah, I mean, if you know who I am, you probably know who Nick is anyway. Well, I wanted to feed the YouTube with something different, something that I don't know, I haven't seen that much of. I want to have real talk about suppressors. So
I think it's great.
All the stuff. So I'm a new suppressor owner-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I've had suppressors maybe for a year now,
Mm-hmm.
something like that, I think. So just kind of stuff I've learned along the way, stuff I wish I knew, and that kind of junk is what I want to talk about.
Should be good because this is a topic where I think people get kind of overwhelmed because there's so much.
There's so many models.
It's like, man, which one do you choose and why?
Yes. And people, I think, get really fixated on the wrong things, which we'll get into also.
I agree.
And it's not exactly like what you see in the movies, with the exception of the 22 can. The 22 can is pretty much what you see in the movies, but everything else is way different, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of made notes to try to keep us on track, but let's just talk about general stuff with suppressors. First off, the thing I did not know, well, especially 5.56 cans, they make the gun hotter.
Oh yeah.
Like the gun itself, the carbine, it gets hotter, and the can gets hotter than being unsuppressed. I did not know that going into it.
Not only hotter, but hotter faster.
Yes.
So like without a can, say, I don't know, you're out shooting bill drills, whatever the case may be. And then maybe like 3 mags in without a can, you're like, okay, this thing's hot. Let me set it down and grab another one if you're one to, like, I don't know about you, but I usually bring 2 to 3 rifles with me.
100%.
So it's like when it gets super hot, I just set it down, grab another one, and keep going. With a suppressor, though, it's probably like, I don't know, probably more like 2 mags. 2 mags in, and it's like, all right, this damn thing's freaking hot.
Yeah, sometimes I'll either do 2 or maybe 3 magazines, but then it's to the point where you could cook on it. You don't want to touch it. If it just, like, the can just, like, touches your leg or something, or, like, forearm just a little bit, it will burn you in a hurry.
Your pants, too.
Yeah, and just, so, like, a 5.56 can, just leave, whichever one, don't care, flow through, not. Like, just leaving the bolt locked open and letting it sit there, like in the shade for 5 minutes, is not going to necessarily cool it off either. Where you want a fan blowing on it. In my experience, keeping it out of the sun, the shade helps a lot, but in the shade with a fan blowing on it. Otherwise, it's not like you can just keep rapid fire shooting that. Not that you could with a regular 5.56 gun, but anyway, they heat up fast.
Yes, very fast and very quickly, for sure.
And then, so a 9mm can. This is an Omega 9K with a tri-lug. This on my MP5 with, I don't know, 3 or 4, 5 magazines in, something like that. I'll get to the point where I feel the forearm like getting hot also, like through the metal. It heats up the whole gun.
With 115s or 147s?
Anything, doesn't matter. The gun gets hot, and the can gets hot, even this 9mm can.
Yeah, I noticed with 115s, since they're a little bit hotter than the 147s, like they definitely get hotter faster with the 115s, but the 147s, like you could shoot like maybe a mag or 2 and still be able to touch the can. If it's like minor power factor ammo.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. The other thing, the next point I want to talk about is the attachment method. I think people don't give that enough consideration, in my opinion.
I think so too.
This is my show. I'll talk about what I want to talk about. But like for 5.56, so switching back to a 5.56 can, like my friend Jason has a bunch of different cans. So he's got a Surefire. He has some of the Silencer Co. stuff. I'm not going to get it all right. He's got this Chemo, I think. Like a bunch of different ones, but then you have to get the muzzle device for that rifle that fits that can, and you can't just swap them back and forth. So I think it's important. Yeah, the can is important also, but look at what ecosystem you want to be in. Because for me, I'm loyal to Surefire. I like the guys. I like the product. The clients I deal with, that's what they use. So I just have Surefire muzzle devices, on all my guns. because then I can put this on any of my 5.56s. But if I also had a Silencer Co. can and then a Hux can, I'd have to pick which muzzle device I wanted on which rifle, and you can't just like easily swap them back and forth.
Well, and there's a lot of like super bunk ass freaking muzzle devices out there. Like if you look like what is it? The Dead Air Nox. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's basically like a Warden, but it has holes all the way around it.
Yes.
Bro, that thing shoves the muzzle down. I can't stand that thing. Like I could almost tell, like when a student has that, I could be on the other end of the line, look down at their gun. It's like, yep, bet that damn thing's a Nox, because it just shoves the muzzle down. And when you get like, I have 2 Dead Air cans, and it's like, man, when you get that thing, like you are married to the muzzle device.
Yes.
You have to be, because most cans you can't remove the mount. Now there are some we should definitely talk about because I think it's an awesome option. Some of the cans out there will have what's called a hub mount. So this one is an Otter Creek Polonium K, and the Otter Creek Polonium K is hub compatible. So there are a plethora of different mounts that you can get for this one in particular. Lots of different companies that make the hub mounts for these style cans. And I mean, there's a bunch of different cans that are hub compatible, not just this one, but it makes it really nice because, I mean, if you don't want to be, married to, I don't know, whatever specific muzzle device, it's like with this, all I need to do is buy a different mount, and then I could get a different muzzle device. It'll fit on a different muzzle device. This one is one from Echo Arms, and it's super freaking small. Like it's basically 0 footprint, which I like because it's a K can. Like I want it to be really tiny.
For people not familiar, K typically means shorter or more compact.
Pequeño.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know all about that.
Yeah. The nice thing about I was going to say the K can. The nice thing about the hub mounts is that you can get the hub compatible muzzle devices, and there are like, I don't know, I could probably name 10, 12 off the top of my head that make these type of muzzle devices that will accept the hub mounts. So like Q being one of them, like if you have a Q cherry bomb, the hub mounts will go right on that. And then there's a bunch of different ones. Like this one's a Reardon, like super, super simple, surefire kind of, or not surefire, but flash hider, kind of just like a A2 style flash hider. Really, really simple. There's 3-prong flash hiders that are hub compatible as well. So it's a super nice option for sure.
The flip side to this, a local guy to me, a friend of mine, Jeff, we were talking about all this, and he's like, I don't want to deal with all that crap. I'm just going to get a direct mount with the can. Like the can is threaded, the barrel is threaded. I will attach the two and just thread it on. What do you say to somebody that would vote for that as opposed to looking at one of the specific mounting ecosystems?
I don't like that, just because the can is going to have to be tightened very, very, very tightly. Like it'll essentially have to be tightened just like some sort of muzzle device. And then it's on there for good. The other thing that I would consider as well is a lot of the muzzle devices out there on the market will act as a sacrificial blast baffle, meaning like as you're firing the gun, all of the powder or whatever is smacking the blast baffle as the bullet travels through it, right? A lot of the muzzle devices on the market will act as a sacrificial blast baffle. Therefore, your can will have a little bit more longevity to it. So like if you're going to shoot it a bunch, I don't know if I would want it to be direct thread. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it.
I agree. The problem is it comes loose. So we talked about like attachment systems. I like the Surefire stuff, like I said, just because they have a bunch of SOCOM contracts.
They have great muzzle devices too.
They make multiple. It's just like it's good to go stuff. Yes, Surefire stuff is probably more spendy, but it's good to go. So anyway, the thing I like about this one is it's got a little pin kind of on the backside. I line this up with a little notch in the muzzle device. It just drops in. All I do is just spin this thing over. It locks in place, and that's it. And this thing can't back off, and I don't have to worry about something like coming loose or like checking it. Whereas with this, if the suppressor comes loose or if it's just direct thread, it's a good habit when you pick this thing up or every couple magazines just to give it kind of a little turn, a little like tug to make sure it's still tight. Yep. And with like a 5.56 can, that might not always. I mean, I wouldn't want to have to do that because it would be so hot to begin with.
That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to go cheap, honestly, this Polonium K, Otter Creek Polonium K, I think these run about $500. And then the Echo Machine mount that I have on this thing that is hub compatible, hub compatible. I think this thing was like $80. And then a lot of the muzzle devices that this will mount on are like $80 as well. So it ends up being fairly inexpensive. And I mean, it goes on to a taper. So you can see here, the lighting is kind of messed up in here because it's kind of dark outside, but yeah, there's a taper and threads. Like it doesn't come loose, like set it and forget it kind of thing. Like it's a really good attachment system, and it's not super expensive.
Yeah. The last thing, talking about muzzle devices or ecosystems, I think you should pick one that has different styles of devices. So again, I'll keep talking about Surefire because I know that stuff. You can get a full-on muzzle brake. I can get a 3-prong, a 4-prong, a closed tine, so it looks like the A2 style. They make like hybrids, like all the war comp, where it's got some porting, but it also looks like an A2. Anyway, so if next year at this time I want to still use that suppressor, but I want to have a different muzzle device, I can switch that and still be ready to roll with my suppressor. So I think that's something you should look into as a company that has a variety, because the way you want to set up your rifle now may not be the way you want to set it up next year.
Yeah. Lastly, like one thing people need to take into account as well is like, is the suppressor mount durable? There's a lot of different suppressor mounts out there, dead air being one of them. This will probably make people angry, but that's okay. The dead air mounts have a ratchet, kind of like what you hear on this one, but they wear out. So it's like I have 2 dead air Sandman K cans. Both of them, the ratchet is wore out. And they kind of come loose as you're firing them. Like, yes, I could send it off to have them, fixed or whatever. It's just a pain in the ass because I'll have it fixed. I'm going to get it back. And then it's probably going to wear out again. Like, it's kind of like the old AAC cans, not as bad as those, but like they had teeth on them. And then the teeth on the inside of the can would wear out. And then your suppressor would just basically walk off.
Okay.
So make sure it's, a durable mount. Like the Surefire mounts, these are freaking bomb-proof, man. Like you won't break these.
No, sure. Like I said, I'll quit shilling for Surefire, but their stuff's just good to go. And if it's it's SOCOM contract, it's you pay for it, but it's very well made stuff and not janky.
Yep.
Also, we should talk about reliability. What do you notice that affects any guns as far as accuracy goes, or just operation, like actually cycling?
Yeah, so I don't have a flow-through can yet. I'm actually going to certify for one tomorrow.
Let's go.
I don't have one just yet. But if you don't have a flow-through can, kind of like what you have there, like the RC3, they will add back pressure to the gun. So sometimes the gun will have to be tuned specifically for running suppressors. So maybe you throw a heavier buffer in it to make the gun not cycle as hard and kind of beat itself to death, because it is going to add back pressure and it is going to make the gun cycle faster. So sometimes it will cause issues, cycling issues, but for the most part, if you've got like a gun made by a reputable company, BCM, ModMat, ADM, Hodge, like all that stuff, it's going to be just fine. But I have seen people have issues adding a suppressor, just having cycling issues.
Yeah. If it's going to be cycling issues, I think it's going to be on a pistol, in my opinion. And so I should have brought it here, but it's down. It's in the safe. One of my Walthers has a threaded barrel, and with the threaded barrel, it came with a heavier recoil spring. The reason for that was with the can on it, when I fired it, it would feed just fine, but sometimes it would end up just a tick out of battery with lighter power factor ammo, and I just kind of push it forward just a little bit. And with the heavier recoil spring, it was just like more giddy up to push it back into battery.
Yeah.
So
My Scar 16 is sensitive to what type of can I put on it. So put the Otter Creek Polonium K on it, it does not like it. And I think it's because this one has more back pressure than like the Surefire can, for instance. Like the Surefire cans don't have as much back pressure as a lot of them out there. And it's like a trade-off, right? The Surefire can is going to be a little bit louder than the Otter Creek Polonium K. However, what you get with that is a little bit more back pressure, and that, like, my Scar 16 does not like the Polonium K. So I just put a Surefire muzzle device on it and just use the Surefire cans.
Well, maybe I'm just lucky. We'll get into this. I only own 3 cans. So I've got a 9mm, a 5.56, and a 22. I don't have any guns that will not cycle or no reliability stuff with any of the guns I have. But I mean, I kind of, I guess, researched them beforehand, and maybe I don't have stuff that's finicky.
The Surefire cans, man, most guns are going to run with the Surefire cans, and that's because they are low back pressure.
Okay.
Lower back pressure.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You talked about noise a second ago. People get very spun up on the internet about like, oh, this one's this decibels and this one's this one and this one has, this. Or do you worry about the sound rating or the reduction? Or I mean, the numbers matter, I suppose, because in theory, the shorter can of K can is going to be louder than a full size can. Or in the RC2 or in the RC2 series, there's a regular and there's a mini. So the mini is lighter, it weighs less, but it's got a little bit more bark. Do you look at those numbers when you're purchasing a can?
I really don't. Now, I'll say this: my 2 Dead Air Sandman K cans, those things are loud, man. Like they are. For a good example of this, like when I first got them, I mounted them on a gun, went out in my front yard and shot it, and I was like, there has to be a problem. Like this thing is. This cannot be a suppressor. Like it sounds like I just put a Surefire Warden on the end of the gun. Those things are loud. So you end up having to change the end cap to the 5. Like if you change the end cap to a 5.56 can or a 5.56 end cap, it'll be a little bit quieter. It makes it better. But do I worry about it? Not really. To be honest, man, like these 2 cans, like if you're comparing them, the RC2 and the Mini is going to be louder than the RC2. However, if I add this, I don't know what this is, 6.5 inches onto this 14.5 inch, ADM that I have here, dude, this thing is like a freaking musket all of a sudden. So I would say the biggest thing for me, like if it's a 14.5 inch gun, the K can is going on it. If it's an SBR, like 11.5 inch or kind of like this 10.5 inch gun that I have here, I'll just put a little bit longer can on it.
I like that. Well, for me, I'm not as scientific as you. I just decided for a 5.56 can, I just wanted to say something to take the crack off a bit. Even shooting this, I have not found any 5.56 can that I want to shoot without hearing protection. So all it does is reduce signature, less flash, less noise. In the case of the RC3, it does make the gun recoil less. But otherwise, I don't plan on shooting that without hearing protection.
Yeah, man. Like I get asked all the time, like, hey, what does that can sound like in person? Or what does it sound like in comparison to this one? And I'm like, man, I don't know. Both of these cans go like this when you shoot it. Like
yeah,
they sound pretty similar. Like the Otter Creek Polonium K, this is probably my quietest 5.56 can. But like I say, there's a trade-off with that. You do get more back pressure with this can. So you're going to get some gas in the face, a little bit more than what you would with the Surefire can. And by a little bit more quiet, that's what I mean. It's like a little bit quieter than the other cans, not by much.
Yeah. And then, well, also ammo factors into it. But I never bought any of these with the intentions of shooting it directly without hearing protection. It's just like I'll test it one way or the other. And all I was planning on doing is just taking the bark off it a bit or making it a little bit more discreet. Whatever, a fun toy.
Yeah. Now, if you're gonna go hunting, I think, hey man, don't wear hearing. I don't wear hearing protection when I go hunting and throw a suppressor on. It's no need. If I'm just gonna shoot one time, hopefully one time.
Sure.
I don't think there's a need for hearing protection.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you. I want to quickly talk about mounting styles. We talked about it a little bit. So there's the direct thread like this one. Then something like there's a bunch of different varieties, but some kind of a locking system where you attach it on. It's some kind of a ratchet or turn it till it stops, whatever. And the other style I've got on this one is a tri-lug. So this one is the MP Fizzle for the MP5. This one it's spring loaded. So you just push it down. It makes like a third of a turn. You release it back up, and then it's got the guts inside that have a spring. So it's kind of quick on and off.
it's pretty baller.
That's more or less the 3 different types of attachments for cans.
Yeah. And then yeah, pretty much. Like you've got your, what do you call it? Your taper mounts as well. Which this one's a taper mount. This would basically just screw on until it comes to a halt, like that, and that's it. And then it's like on there. It's weird. Like barely tighten it, and it's good to go.
Hey, speaking of being on there and tightening it,
that's how I like it.
At Nick's house not that long ago. Mm-hmm. We were talking about Surefire stuff. I'm like, yeah, man, I just dropped mine on, it just snaps in place. He's like, nah. And I was like, do you clean that thing ever? So my friend, I know, and I have some friends like my friend Jason's like, I don't want to buy. He doesn't want to have to do that. He wants set it and forget it stuff. For me, yeah, look at that. That's the way it's supposed to be. Somebody will probably be unhappy in the comments about this, but when I get back from the range, I don't leave any of the cans on my guns forever. Normally after each range trip, I'll just pull the can off, take whatever aerosol gun lubricant or oil you like, hold it over a trash can, and just make a couple like drive-bys of just aerosol spray, wipe it off with a paper towel, and then you can do the same thing to the inside of your can or whatever you like to do. It's up to you, but I'll at least hose off the muzzle device for using all of 10 seconds. And that's been really good about making sure nothing gets carbon locked on, because on any of these, regardless of styles, if you set it and forget it and shoot the thing thousands of rounds, it will seize on the gun to varying degree.
Yep, for sure. Especially if you have a Surefire Warden, or not a Warden, the what is it called? The War Comp. Mm-hmm. That has the ports in the top. Like those ports basically are on the mounting surface of the can. So all the carbon and shit that comes out of those ports freaking really, really gums up the mounting solution for the cans. So you will need to clean it if you have a War Comp.
Yeah. No, I agree. What else? What about, we could go through rifle pistol cans, I guess. Mm-hmm. Anything specific to pistol cans that we need to talk about?
I do not want a really long suppressor. I'm a huge fan of like having short cans. Most of my cans are going to be the K cans. So I don't want something super long and cumbersome. That's what she said, baby.
I was just leaving it alone. You're used to working with shorter tools. I get it.
Yeah. I like the shorter cans. I want it to be very durable. And yeah, maybe a good warranty, stuff like that. But the Silencer Co. Omega 9K, like this thing's been super durable, man. And I've shot the piss out of this thing. So, yeah, not much. Like,
let's make recommendations then. If somebody wants to buy a 9mm pistol can, is an Omega 9K the one to buy?
That's, at the top of my list, without a doubt.
You told me that. So did Lucas Bodkins. That's what I bought. There's also a new model out that I'll probably end up getting also called a Spectre 9 from Silencer Co., which is more or less this. It's a little bit longer. I know you're not used to this, and a little bit smaller in diameter, but it's made out of titanium, so it's 4 ounces lighter. So you start looking at all these numbers. 4 ounces, does that really matter? But if it's on a pistol and it's way out here, further away from your grip, the weight out front does matter a bit when you're swinging the gun around from target to target.
It does.
That can I might get just to play with it. But otherwise, sorry, go ahead.
The other thing that I think about with suppressors specifically is like, if you look at the Omega 9K and it has all these welds around it, right? If you get a baffle strike on any of these and you send this thing back, they will basically just cut off the old can and re-weld a new can on it. And that's because the the serial number is on the part that does not have baffles. Same exact thing with the Otter Creek can. Same thing here, and I've actually done that before. So I had a really big baffle strike on this thing. I had some really bad ammo that like tumbled through the can, and they basically just cut the old can off, re-welded a new can. It's got this nice little C-section scar here, but other than that, it's like a brand new can. So
talking through a little bit, I know there'll be people listening to this that are already up to speed, but specifically, most of these you can change out the guts. So this is the tri-lug attachment on it, but it's got a little tool that's got 3 little teeth that line up with those holes. You can take this off, and then you can put the guts, different guts in. So this could be made to be a direct thread on a fixed barrel. If it's going on a pistol, it needs that piston system. So it's got a piston and a spring that goes inside of this. So anyway, you can change the guts based on what you're mounting it to. And I think about all the pistol cans do that? Or a majority of them, I guess, at least?
Yes. Yep. You cannot take the guts out of the Omega 9K. Just the...
Well, sorry, not the guts, just the mounting section. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I would say all pistol cans you can do that because you would need to, right? Because sometimes not all pistols are going to, or not all pistol barrels are going to be like 1/2 by 28. It might be something else, something kind of off the wall, and then you need to put a different piston in there to fit it. In terms of like the taking the guts.
And I was going to say, you said I said guts, and you took it differently, so we should talk about that.
Yeah, so if you're going to get a 22 can, it is very important that you can take the guts out. At least for me, it would be. And that's because 22 ammo is super freaking dirty. It's got a ton of lead on it, and this will get extremely dirty very, very quickly. And I've even heard of these things like corroding. So you have to be able to take the baffles out, throw them, in some cleaner just to get all the lead and shit off of it. But I don't do that often, but like it should be done.
Yeah, my Surefire came with a tool also. So it's a tool that slides over the muzzle end, different end that goes in the other end of the can, and then it's like a tool that you turn, and it unthreads and slides out. I haven't done it yet to this one, and then all the baffles are in different like numbers that are kind of stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, you can't mess it up. Like this is the same can, the Surefire Rider 22. Like you can't mess it up. They're all numbered, and they all basically like key into each other, and then you just drop it back in. No worries.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're gonna buy a pistol can, I think the Omega 9K is kind of a no-brainer. It's a safe thing to recommend to anyone. It's kind of it's a safe bet, and it's versatile.
Yep, relatively inexpensive too for a suppressor.
Yeah. The other one that's like brand new that I'm looking at is a Spectre 9, which is very comparable to this. It's just titanium. You're into that nerdy stuff. For 22 pistol or 22 cans, we both have Surefires. What brand do you have brands you recommend with that? I know there's so many different ones.
For 22 cans, the Dead Air Mask, hands down the quietest 22 can I've ever heard.
Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend the Dead Air Mask. Like even without like subsonic ammo, it is mega quiet. I kind of wish I bought the Dead Air Mask instead.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not one for researching. I just knew that Surefire made one, and I like Surefire stuff, and I like Surefire guys. So I just got a Surefire because I found out they made one. But I know there's a gazillion companies that make 22 suppressors. And the one thing I heard was that you want to be able to take it apart. That was the one criteria that matters for the 22 cans.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say, like, man, if you're on the fence about getting a suppressor, you should just get a 22 can to see, like, am I going to like this? Because, like, real talk, this is hands down my favorite tack stand, is my 22 can. Like, I've got a threaded lever gun that I put it on, a 22 lever. And, dude, you just hear the freaking hammer fall. Like, it's awesome. So much fun.
I like that. If you had to pick a 5.56 can, somebody's asking you what to buy, what's your go-to there?
Probably as of now. So I haven't gotten a low back pressure can yet. Like I say, I'm going to certify tomorrow, and that one is a Silencer Co. Velos. I got the full size 5.56 one because I can actually put the reared-in mount on it, which makes the overall package kind of pretty small, which
you like,
as you would say, I'm used to.
Yeah.
But until I shoot that thing and get a feel for it, like the Otter Creek Polonium K, probably my favorite 5.56 can so far. And it's just because the modularity of it, it's quiet. There's not a whole lot of, flame that comes out of it for a K can. It's dope. I love the modularity of it. Like you could even get Surefire mounts for it.
Is that the can I shot in Ohio, or I used in Ohio?
Yes.
All right, that was too gassy for me. I did not like it. I'm very high maintenance.
You will have back pressure with that one for sure. Like if you're used to that flow through can that you have, and then you put that on, you're like, oh shit, there's a lot of gas, for sure.
So I want to talk about flow through a little bit because it's important for 5.56. I'm not going to bore you with all the details because I'm not smart enough to know the details. More or less, the way most suppressors work, they have amount of, like what Nick's saying, back pressure, whereas through the charging handle, like the ejection port, the action of the gun back towards you, there's a bunch of gas that comes back at you, whether it's unburnt powder, whatever. So there are charging handles that are vented or have guards to help mitigate that. In my opinion, from what I've done, none of those actually matter enough to be really noticeable for changing buffer springs. In my opinion, there are two types of suppressors for 5.56. There are flow through and there are not flow through. And so that Velos that you got, I've tried one of those that works great. The Hucks are good. I think the Surefire RC3 is king of the hill. Again, this is maybe, I shouldn't say this, maybe the most expensive or one of the more expensive. This isn't a cheap can, but I think this is king of the hill just for reliability, durability. I mean, pedigree, rounds down range, testing, all that junk, but it's not cheap. Anyway, when I was looking to buy a can, I just researched it enough and had tried a non-flow through for a little bit. Like, yep, that sucks. Don't want that. Mm-hmm. So I was instantly done with those, and I won't own anything that's not flow through for 5.56 anyway.
Sorry, go ahead.
The flip side is just that stuff coming back at you, and it's annoying if you're not used to it. Because with this, I'm not saying shoot it without eye pro, but if you didn't have eye protection, you would be fine. Otherwise, you end up with stuff where some of my friends shooting cans that are not flow through end up coughing, or you end up with kind of freckles on your face with powder or powder specks or gun oil, any of that kind of crap. So anyway, what were you going to say?
Well, supposedly that like gas is not good for your health either.
I think it causes cancer.
Yeah, that's kind of a bad gig.
That's a speculation.
Dude, the flow through stuff has gotten so good. I see the regular style cans eventually just going away. Like I don't foresee those to be sticking around for forever. It seems like everything is going to flow through now.
Sorry, I should have finished my thought. So with the flow through, a lot of these are vented in the front. So the idea is it's sending a lot of the junk out the muzzle as opposed to back through the action. The downside to that is the flow through cans as a whole, I don't think are as quiet as the non-flow through cans if you're getting out your instruments and measuring it by decibels.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm going to wear hearing protection anyway, so I don't really care. I just don't want to get hit in the face with unburnt powder and gas.
Like when we were in Ohio, you shot that one next to this one, the Polonium K, and I don't know. They both.
I thought it sucked. I didn't like it. I didn't want to finish the magazine that was in it. But that makes me sound very elitist. I understand that.
You are elitist, but in terms of sound, like they both sounded.
I was wearing hearing protection on both of them. I don't want to shoot either one of them without ear pro. They sounded the same to me.
Yeah, 5.56 I don't care if it's suppressed. Like it's loud. Mm-hmm. It's a loud bullet.
So we need to talk about why that. I mean, that's for people common sense, but it's bullets breaking the sound barrier. So with the pistol cans, if you use subsonic, which I think we talked about a little bit. So for instance, going back to the Omega 9K or a pistol can, this on my Walther, threaded 4-inch Walther, if I shoot 115s or I've got some 90 grain hot stuff, that stuff will spit some stuff back at me. Just whatever the extra, I don't know the scientific term, but the extra velocity, the unburnt powder. Sometimes I think it matters from ammo manufacturer to manufacturer based on the type of powder that's in it and the burn rate. But the light, fast bullets, especially the stuff breaking the sound barrier, is going to be louder. You get a little bit of a snap, and I get more stuff back in the face.
Yep.
So if I shoot anything like with this 124s, I shoot a lot of 124 grain Blazer, CCI Blazer brass. No issues with that at all as far as anything splashback. And then anything 147 grain is going to be very quiet. That's more of the movie style stuff where you hear the click and you kind of hear the gun operate.
Yeah.
But that one is definitely hearing protection safe, or we don't need hearing protection.
100%.
It's a lot quieter, and then you don't get any of the stuff splashing back at you.
1000%. Yeah. Yep. The 9mm is definitely going to be quieter. It's
Yeah.
almost like 300 blackout quiet.
Sure. And then with blackout, you're looking at there's two different types of ammo. You're looking at the subsonic stuff or like the hypersonic stuff. So it's based on velocity. So that's going to determine the sound. Cool. What closing thoughts? Would you rather shoot suppressed or unsuppressed?
Unsuppressed. Any day of the week.
Why?
It's so it makes the gun more cumbersome when you put on it, meaning like if there's weight at the end of the gun. Well, let me grab this one this will be an example. Oh shit, stuff's falling. So this gun in particular, right? It's a piston gun, which makes the front end already heavy. And I have an end gal on it and a flashlight. And then if I threw a suppressor on it too, it's like this thing becomes very front heavy. And on transitions, it becomes very difficult to stop on the target. So it's like you really, really have to pay attention when you're shooting this thing suppressed, because if you give it any sort of juice to the target, it is very difficult to stop. So if you're if you're one to shove the gun around, you definitely, like, this will punish you with a suppressor on it. And most rifles are going to be like that. Like even this 14.5-inch gun right here, you put a can on this and it just makes it more cumbersome. So it's also going to heat up a whole lot faster. I don't know. Like I basically almost only use cans at nighttime. Like if we're going to go out and shoot with nods and stuff, I'll put a suppressor on, just not to be a dick to the neighbors.
Yeah. I still like shooting with cans just for the novelty. It's fun, especially in the MP5. It's fun with this tri-lug. Maybe it could be that it's an HK. It could be the tri-lug. Whatever. There's no zero shift with or without. It's dead money, the exact same hole. So I just like I normally shoot that gun with the suppressor on it just because it's fun. It's like running around like a Navy SEAL or Call of Duty or whatever.
For sure.
I think it's very fun. And same thing. That's the fun factor. This 22 this thing sounds like a staple gun.
Dude, I'm telling you.
It's ridiculous and it's super fun.
It's my favorite tax stamp ever.
Yeah.
This thing, like if your viewers are into hunting little critters at night, bro, it's amazing.
There you go. So now, anyway, I agree with you though. I think that has a lot of fun factor, which is why you buy them anyway. And I buy them just so I can talk intelligently about them and have clients that have them. But otherwise, for the bulk of my training, it's going to be unsuppressed also, for all the reasons you mentioned. Heat being a lot of it.
Yeah. It's cumbersome, man. It's almost like you have to figure out how to index the gun with a can and then figure out how to index the gun without a can, because it does feel completely different.
It does.
So,
do you have any regrets with suppressor purchases where it was a mount, a can, something you wish you would have known beforehand? Words of wisdom?
My 2 Dead Air Sandman Ks. Like complete waste of money, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
Complete waste of money. They're so freaking loud. They send a massive ass freaking flame out the end of the barrel. Like the mount sucks. There's not great muzzle devices. Not recommended at all. Okay.
Well, I have 0 regrets so far, but I only own 3, and I researched them and talked to people before I buy them. So I did not walk into the gun store and just pick out one that I liked the look of or that I saw my favorite gun tuber use. I actually researched it a bit, like which one do I buy? And then Nick just says, like, this is the one you want, Mega 9K. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That was kind of the one I was already leaning towards. I'll just get that.
Yeah. The other one that we should talk about is the quote unquote do-all cans.
Okay.
Those are out there, and I think, like, I own one. It's a Silencer Co. Hybrid 46, I think they call it.
Okay.
So the Silencer Co. Hybrid, you could shoot on a rifle, you could shoot on a pistol. It's very modular. You could change all the end caps, you could change the mounting system, all of that stuff. At the end of the day, it's like that's a particular can that doesn't do anything really good. Like, it's not a good pistol can. It's not really a good rifle can because it's humongous. Not used to that, as you would say. It's just, it just doesn't do any of the things really good. And then, I bought that thing and I want to say I forgot. It was somewhere around $1,000. And then by the time I got muzzle devices, mounts, different end caps, I was probably into that thing for like $1,500. And I'm like, this thing doesn't do anything very good. So like your do-all cans, I would not recommend it. Like I know, they market that thing as like, hey, you could just buy this and it will do all the things for your guns. That could not be further from the truth. Like, yeah, you can mount it on there, but it's probably not going to be good for anything because it has a 46 caliber diameter, and it's like, I don't know, man. It's just not meant for any of the things that you or I would be shooting.
Ah, good to know.
So it just sits there and collects dust for the most part.
Perfect. Just waiting for the big one, then you can actually, deploy it and get it into action or something.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever. I think you already answered it. My last question was just if you're only getting one caliber, what would it be, or one can? Yours would be a 22?
For me, it would probably be a 5.56 can. Or a 30. Like, if you got a 30 cal can, that wouldn't be bad. My first can was a 30 cal can, and I shot it on 300 blackout and 5.56. And that suited me pretty good for a little while. So,
I like that. I think it just depends on what you want to do with it, what your goal is. If it's hunting critters, if it's just having fun with the boys, or a work thing.
Yeah.
The first can I got was the 5.56, just because it actually makes sense for a business sense to have and be able to talk about it well. And it's, I don't know, it made the most sense to own just because you could do a lot of stuff with 5.56. The other stuff's a little bit more specialty. So
yeah, well, and the 5.56 cans are going to be quieter than the 30 cal cans on a 5.56. Typically, like the 30 cal cans on a 5.56 will have a little bit deeper tone. So if you like that, maybe that's a consideration for you if you're in the market for a can. They are going to be a little bit louder on a 5.56, but it will have a deeper tone. So just kind of depends on what you're looking for.
yeah, I agree. I like it. Cool, man. I think that's all my notes I had anyway. Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, anytime, man.
If Nick's on YouTube, so he's easy to find, just Velox Training Group. Otherwise, people can drop comments below about how little we know about suppressors, how uneducated we are, or what model should people use. And then if we get enough comments, we'll just make another video and address those questions.
Tell us what we said wrong.
Please do. This was good. Anyway, thanks for your time. And yeah, anyone has questions, drop them below.